Harman Smith is saying some stupid shit again. Black Lives Matter needs to stop blaming racism for all of their problems. They don't. All right, so let's get into the video here. Harman Smith, what dumbass shit do you have for us today with your ghetto fucking setup? Take it away.
So I've been thinking over the past couple of days since
Did this motherfucker, like, just wake up and forget to take off his sleep mask? What the fuck is this shit?
I made that video, shit-talking black people for fucking rioting for no reason. Should I consider myself racist? Because I generally have this mindset that, like, well, if I feel a certain way about something, I should at least, like, seriously own it and seriously, like, address it. You know what I mean? Like, I openly admit I don't like the LGBT community. I've been very critical of them for years. I've been around them for, well, I was around them for a very, very significant portion of my life and dealt with, like, all sorts of shit, like exposed the hypocrisy, the double standards, the sexual harassment. Like, there's all sorts of shady shit going on in that community that people don't really talk about because the
What do you know about shady shit in the LGBT community? The closest you get to that is calling people the F slur on Xbox Live. Or whatever you... They don't really have voice chat on the Switch, so you can't really do it there, but seriously, dude, who you fooling?
the journalists, the media, academia, all they do is really put those people in the best possible light. And that's kind of happening right now with Black Lives Matter and the black community, which is something that I comparatively feel less strongly about. Really, before this whole riot thing started, I wasn't really interested in the black community at all. But over the past year or so, I've slowly been getting more into it, more involved, and more solidifying my opinion. And I can't.
Do tell how your opinion on black people has solidified over the last year. This should be fun.
Be considered racist. I don't think I can be considered racist because I'm not judging these people on their race. I am judging them on their own actions. Like, I'm saying they're going out and destroying shit and killing people because they're going out destroying shit and killing people. I'm essentially calling a spade
A spade, of course. So it's worth mentioning that they're only destroying shit because the police have uh, made it so that's the only way they can be heard. And also notice that now that a lot of the protests have quieted down, the police have realized that they're not making things easier. People aren't going home when they pepper spray and mace and tear gas them, shoot them with rubber bullets, what have you. Keep in mind, you notice that a lot of the coverage of the protests has gone down. They're still going strong. There's still protests every fucking weekend. But they're not getting covered because they don't have those nice shots of people rioting and breaking shit. I'm glad the protests are still going on. I'm glad that social media is still continuing to cover them, even if mainstream media refuses to. I know that some people have died next SVK. I can't say for sure whether they've died at the hands of protesters or not. I know that the one big one, the guy in Dallas that everyone said was killed, is in stable condition, or was shortly after that video went live. So, but deaths are a tragedy. I'm not going to. I'm not going to dismiss any deaths that the protesters may have caused. But unfortunately, I have to be kind of realistic about these things. And when you're trying to essentially carry out a revolution, which it's not the revolution, but it's a revolution, people are going to get hurt and die. We need to do what we can to prevent that, but unfortunately it is going to happen. But yeah, I don't know for sure who has died or not, because there's a whole lot of misinformation about it.
A spade. I'm essentially calling them out on their bullshit. And in response, their immediate response to all criticism all the time from all sorts of people, from politicians to the police to no-name YouTubers like me, is just cry and call them racist. That is their default to everything. And for the most part, I think
yes, if you don't support the Black Lives Matter protests, you are racist. There's no two ways, ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you don't support them, you're racist. Sucks to suck, I guess. What specifically do you disagree about next, SVK?
it kind of works because a lot of people are really desperately trying to avoid that label. Like, oh, I'm not racist. I fucking love black people. Well, it needs to stop, essentially. I do think the black community has this obsession with race, more so than white people, because I remember growing up that, like,
a community that has been discriminated against based entirely on their race for 400 years is obsessed about race? You don't fucking say.
how I didn't think about race.
There's a certain boundary what a protester should do. Vandalism is not one of them. I agree with some of their points, but they are going the wrong way about it. We're just gonna have to disagree next, SVK, because while I agree that some of the vandalism may be like the vandalizing of the 54th Regiment, I think it was, which was an all black regiment, but they need to be heard somehow, and no one is listening to them, so they put their message where it can't be ignored. Yeah, Catch My Load, that is a pretty good name. Welcome to chat.
At all outside of very very general, like, that's what that person is. Like, I didn't think about behavior or patterns or anything like that. Like, I didn't shit all over black people for being black, you know what I mean? And yet it's weird how everything in the black community seems to revolve around race. Like, people only hate us because we're black, man. It's
I mean, that is a stereotype based on a common complaint boiled down. There are a lot of people who do just hate black people because they're black. They try to say, oh, it's because they're violent, or they're dumb, or they're whatever racist dog whistle you want to use. And I'm sure he's going to go into 1350ing us and all that bullshit. But yeah, black people have literally been discriminated against because of their race. So when they're trying to talk about the issues they're dealing with, race is a big part of it. Class certainly has a role to play there, but the problem when you try to go with a class analysis, or when they try to make efforts to improve their socioeconomic class, it gets co-opted by white people, and it's easier for white people to co-opt that because there are plenty of poor white people. But when you talk about race, that is a conversation only black people, in regards to black people's interactions with race, can really have intelligently. So yeah, they talk about race. Why does that bother you? Yeah, and that's fine, next SVK. I mean, I'm not here for an echo chamber. I don't think people hate black prisoners because they're black solely. Like, you don't hate spiders because they're spiders. So I hate spiders because they can be poisonous and leave cobwebs all over. That is a valid reason to dislike spiders. Uh, people hate, most people hate black people, it seems, because there's usually a variety of reasons, but it often comes back to the way they interact with that race. So so while they won't say I hate them just because they're black, they hate them because of things which are intrinsic to them, and oftentimes are things that they cannot change. Thanks for the follow. They drink adrenochrome, but so a lot of people who are racist are don't have a solid reason for it. They just have justifications or excuses, like black people commit more crime, or a black person beat me up one time, or whatever reason or justification they have. But there's a lot of internalized racism because they're taught from a young age that black people are inferior to them. So even if they justify it with, oh, I lived in a neighborhood and all the black people hated me and I got beat up every day, or, like as black people commit more crime, or, black people were constantly breaking into my house when I was a kid, or whatever justification they use, it's not something that is inherent or intrinsic to black people. They are using one or a handful of incidents they encountered with one or a handful of black people to justify their hatred of all black people. Right, yeah, exactly, next SVK. They justify their hate not on the basis of skin color, but on generalization of characteristics. Yeah, exactly.
It's laughable. Like they have no self awareness. It feels like they do stuff like this riot, right? They do all this crazy shit. They talk down to people. They attack police, and then they have the audacity to like.
Only once the police have attacked them with tear gas. And I'll not deny that there are definitely some angry people who maybe started stuff in some places. Certainly, there's shitty people everywhere. But the overwhelming majority of riots and looting we've seen are the result of black people of black people protesting peacefully and the police doing things to get them to not be peaceful. And unlike every other time this has happened, we have high definition cameras on the police when they do this, and the people aren't just quietly going home afterwards. Right. I think I should be insulted, Dis Eli. I'm not sure.
Really to pretend as if like, oh man, if you criticize me, if you come after me, you're racist. Or more recently, like people are again, people in general are kind of abusing their right to protest. I think like I'm hearing stories of people like destroying shit and like being like robbing stores and being like,
Abusing their right to protest. What in the neoliberal bullshit is that? Abusing your right to protest. Because when they protested peacefully, they were met with tear gas, riot gear, and rubber bullets. So they responded in kind with and yes, there are some people living out their anarchic dreams of smashing things and looting and what have you. Certainly. But the overall message of the riots is the same. They're not being listened to, so now you have to listen to them. Riots are the language of the unheard, after all. The protests were peaceful until the police started, again, hitting them with mace and tear gas and rubber bullets. Show me an example of the protests being violent before the police started doing their thing.
Oh, you can't do anything. I am protesting. I'm exercising my right to protest. It's ridiculous. It's gotten way out of hand and really needs to be addressed.
This video. Okay, so this video is. I wonder if they think if they follow me that I won't ban them, because that's not how it works. Like, I have no problem banning shitty people in my chat if they're being shitty, like become the truth seeker they lie and they drink adrenochrome have. Jesus. Yeah, as Dodge said, the protest I live streamed was peaceful. There were police there and everything, but it was totally peaceful. And there have been numerous other peaceful protests, especially in the last week or so. So, yeah, the protests were peaceful until they were until the police started instigating things, and then they fought back. Random drunk punches at me with generalization gotcha attempt, then immediately vilifies protesters with generalizations of violence. Yeah. Oh, that could be. I don't have that set up because I don't have enough of a community to support a follower-only chat. But that makes more sense, Dodge.
And I am very frustrated with how this is with how this has been treated by a lot of people. You know what I mean? I've made that clear. Man, it's very it's I feel I really can't reiterate this enough. Like, black people need to take responsibility for their own actions.
Ding, ding, ding! Black people need to take responsibility for their own actions. They do, motherfucker. What they're trying to do is make sure that that society understands how they're being mistreated. And while they're... How do I explain this so that smooth brains like this will understand? Black people take responsibility for their own actions. And they especially are taking responsibility for the non-good optics actions that are taking place during these protests. But the problem is that society is trying to blame them for everything that goes wrong in their communities and ignoring how the effects of systemic racism, of hypercapitalization, or capitalism rather, how the redlining and all these other historical effects have affected them, and they're ignoring how those impact the people in these communities. So it's not that black people don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. They're perfectly willing to. But society is trying to blame actions they are not at fault for on them. And that's the real problem. The police did not take away the right to protest. They were there to set boundaries to it. Protest Okay, next SVK, seriously, if you're gonna keep up with the but the protesters were violent first, and we have literal video evidence of otherwise, I don't know what else to tell you, man. The police did not they were there to set boundaries, and when they decided it wasn't getting violent enough, they started shooting tear gas and rubber bullets at them. Or is the case in Seattle, someone just had an umbrella, they held it out, which umbrellas are common in protests like this because they're good for deflecting tear gas and mace and the like. Someone had an umbrella, some other dude grabbed, one of the cops grabbed it and like tried to pull it away, so they yanked it back because that's their property. What the fuck are you doing? And that's what ignited the riots. That's what led to the CHOP, the occupied precinct. Is that what the P stands for? It's the Capitol Hill occupation something. I don't know. Yeah, I think so. Sam Crowder jumped on it today. I think it's wrong for us to measure the impact of the pandemic by counting any death that's COVID related as a COVID-19. Okay. Okay.
Like I am. They're going to expect handouts after this. They're going to expect
Oh
taxpayer
God.
dollars.
Fuck you. They're gonna expect handouts after this. No, they just want parity. They want the same opportunity that everyone else has received and not to be treated as second class citizens or treated as barely human monsters who need to be corralled and controlled like they have been for decades by the police. These one handouts is the conservative dog whistle for they want equality.
To fix their cities and restore the businesses that they destroyed, they themselves destroyed. And I would suggest not giving it to them. Like find a way to make them work for it, to make them earn it. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know what the
Earn it? Earn. See, he's being deliberately vague because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. All they're asking for, what we're asking for now is defund the police. Uh, I don't like to say reform the police because that's often taken as a lesser option, but radically reform the police. Scale back their responsibilities and their funding to things that police are needed for: violent interactions, actual violent crime, making sure that everyone is safe and healthy and happy during tense hostile situations, and leave the other things to people who are better trained for it, like social workers. And I've seen some people suggest that like traffic stops don't need to be handled by police, that they could be handled by other another unarmed force, especially since traffic stops are so often used by police to escalate things, particularly with minorities. How many stories are there out there of minorities who get stopped for a bad taillight, or claim they were speeding, or they went over a line for half a second, or any other number of ridiculously minor traffic stops, and it ends up with the driver dead, or at least injured, if not just generally harassed. Um, the vandalism and looting, I don't know that that's true. Do you have evidence of that? Because I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm sure that it continued a little while after the police abandoned the precinct simply because it takes time for that information to filter back, but uh I haven't posted an apology for George. What do I have to apologize for? What remorse do I have to show for George Floyd's death? Is this some all white people need to apologize for his death? That performative bullshit? Fuck that. No, I don't owe George Floyd anything more than my support. I don't owe him an apology. White people in general don't owe black people an apology. We need to change things. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dodge.
The long-term consequences of this are going to be, because I'm certainly not going to pay more taxes to deal with this bullshit. Like, no, that's completely unacceptable. And I they I there needs to be some kind of resolution to this. Like, there needs to be.
I'm glad you agree, Harman. Here's the resolution: defund the police. Spend that money on community centers, schools, and social workers so that they get paid properly and have the resources necessary to make sure that our children grow up happy, healthy, and well adjusted. So that we don't have people turning to crime just so they and their children can eat. So we don't have people living in shitty neighborhoods with shitty schools with curricula that are decades out of date. But that doesn't fit your narrative of black people just wanting a free handout, so that isn't the resolution you want. Will I at least kneel in solid? Absolutely. I 100% support solidarity. I kneel for the cross. I don't think you know enough about me to say I don't kneel. I don't share solidarity with. I laid down at the protest I went to for George Floyd. Yeah, I have no problem standing, kneeling, whatever in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. I let them take the lead on what they want to say. As one of the great philosophers of our time, Dave Chappelle said, "I'm cool taking a back seat here. Y'all seem to know what you're doing, where you're going. I'm cool taking a back seat." Yeah, why the fuck would I apologize for that? This idea that white people need to performatively apologize to black people for George Floyd's murder. No. We know who's responsible. 3 of them are in jail. One of them was released on bond because fuck it. And the system needs to be changed, and we can work towards that. Okay, dude. By I mean, I'm not saying I'm some thought leader or anything, but I'm doing my small part to educate people about Black Lives Matter and the issues of systemic racism. And we're done here. All right, all right. I'm kneeling. I'm kneeling. What do you want from me? Yeah. Thank you, Dodge.
There's no victimization of black people. I really can't stress that enough. Like, it's really interesting how the narrative is that everyone in the system is working really hard to keep the black man down, no matter what. Like, oh, we don't have money because of racism. We don't have we keep getting arrested because of racism. We are we can't find good places to live, better places to live because of racism. Like they sort of spin it around and around and around over and over again around this one thing and don't really do anything to correct it. It's really interesting seeing people, who are successful stars, right? Like, black success stories. Rap.
So I'm waiting for him to get to a point about how there's no black victimization, because that's just wrong. We know that blacks are overwhelmingly picked out, that black people get overwhelmingly picked up as accused of crimes. Their areas are over policed, so there's more police in their area looking for people doing crimes. They are more likely to be the victim of police brutality and violence. They're way overrepresented in prisons. This is just wrong and stupid.
Rappers, sports stars, like people like that who still get into situations that are criminal, and it's really interesting how people sort of are sort of glazing over this sort of mindset, this sort of glamorization of a hood culture, thug culture, gang culture. You know what I mean? Like this sort of mindset.
Holy dog whistles, Batman. Like, yes, we know that the glorification of hood culture is a bad meme. That's why there are groups like Black Lives Matter trying to change the system so that black people don't see that gangs and crime, drug dealing, robbery, whatever, are the only ways to get ahead. Gangs are generally gangs formed originally as a way to protect their area because the police weren't. And in many cases, the police still aren't. Now, yes, a lot of gangs grow into larger criminal enterprises because that's how they can make money. If we make sure that these organizations, or if we make sure that there is money for communities to have places like community centers where kids can go after school to have fun in a structured way so that they don't fall into these bad patterns. If we make sure that there's money so that schools have good curriculum and teach kids how to be good, responsible people. If we make sure that that police, that whoever investigates actual crimes doesn't just assume that the first black person they see is guilty, then maybe we can stop this glorification of thug culture.
It's really it's interesting, right? They always spout like, oh, racism. White people are out to get us because we're different. Yet this is America, like an extremely diverse country with people all over the world coming in all the time. There was an Asian cop on the scene, right? Like, why aren't these other races having the same kind of problems that you're?
Well, I don't know, Harman. Maybe because black people were literally brought over here as property. And there's a lot of people around this country who still kind of think that black people should be property. And when you dehumanize people the way black people have been for the last 400 years, it's pretty easy for these people in power to justify the treatment they get. You can't say, well, Asian people don't face this discrimination because they've had different material conditions. Same with Mexican people, same with Italians and Irish and what have you. You can't say that because black people were brought over here in chains as literal property, not even human, that means that they have the same place in society as Asian people who largely came over here in recent decades as wealthy doctors and the like. Sure, there were Asian immigrants in the 18th and 19th century, and they faced their own discriminations, but not there weren't the numbers of them that there are of black people. Because again, the Asians who came over here chose to come over here. Most of the black people in America did not choose to come to America. Their ancestors did not choose to come to America. It's a big difference.
We're having, right? Like if it's purely the white man keeping you down, like what what about all these other people? Like how are they being oppressed? Like it's just it's really interesting seeing people try to spin it, like try to explain like how everything is secretly racist, like oh you're trying to pretend that like every action you take is somehow racist. You know what I mean? Like cops defending themselves from an angry riot. Oh, police brutality, crying wolf, like racism. Like
I love how there are plenty of examples one could go to show to disingenuously show black people calling everything racist. And the first one he jumps to is verifiable and justifiable examples of police brutality? What? I agree, next SVK. The problem is it's going to be investigated by the cops' buddies in the precinct. And so it's not guaranteed to be an unbiased, impartial investigation. That's why I think one of the things we should use the money that police shouldn't get anymore is to establish a nonpartisan, impartial, unbiased organization to investigate police use of force. Like every time a gun clears leather, there should be an investigation into it by a completely unbiased, disconnected from the police force organization. There's money for it. There's plenty of money for it. Despite what the government would have you believe, that we don't have any money for this, there's plenty of money for it if we stop letting police buy assault rifles and tanks.
like it just all comes back around. You know what I mean? It's obnoxious. It really is. It not only obnoxious, but really pathetic. Like seeing people brag about this shit. Like, oh, we're fighting the police. It's really weird. Like if you were really being oppressed, if you were really being violated, if you really had no rights, you'd be getting shot. Like you would be getting like imprisoned. Like you would.
They are. They do. What are you talking about, dude? Just because it doesn't happen every time doesn't mean that there's not racism and dehumanization going on with these people. What are you? What a smooth brain. Holy shit.
Would be treated worse than other prisoners. You would be kept separately from white prisoners. That doesn't really happen, right? You're getting arrested for a reason because you keep getting in deals, getting in trouble with the cops for a reason because you keep committing crimes. And the fact that this situation devolved in such a
Holy shit. This guy's about to unironically 1350 us. Yes, black people disproportionately commit crimes because they're disproportionately poor and disadvantaged in society. The vast majority of crimes are the result of people not having access to either the resources they need to live or mental health resources so that they correct their issues. This is a systemic sociological fact. If you disagree with that, you're wrong. So, yes, I have no issue admitting that black people commit a disproportionate amount of crime. But to say that they receive these punishments, this treatment at the hands of cops because of their because they commit more crimes, is ignoring why they commit more crimes, and also ignoring that white people who commit the same crimes get a different treatment. Like, you're basically saying that because black people commit more crimes, an individual black person deserves the treatment they get at the hands of the cops, no matter what their history is. I mean, I've read countless stories of so called good, respectable black people who get treated like dirt by cops because they're black. Wasn't there a police chief who stood up for his cops and then was harassed and beaten by them just very recently? I thought I read something about that.
Such a terrible riot, like that in and of itself, like demonstrates why the police treat you the way they do, because you pull stuff like this. You try to pull this all the time. Oh, by the way, the really idiotic plan put forward by Minnesota to the city of Minneapolis to remove the police force, it's just gonna make things worse. I have no idea why they.
Hey, buddy. Look up Camden, New Jersey. They eliminated their police force years ago, and crime is at an all-time low in their city because they used those funds to help the city. This is what boggles my mind about these people. Like, Minneapolis is going to be a hellhole, just wait. Like, you don't think the money they spend on the police isn't going to go to help the community? You think that the community is just going to... Like, I've seen some people on my Facebook timeline be like, they eliminate the cops, every crime's going to come with the death penalty. And it's like, you really think that we're suggesting just eliminate the cops and not replace them with something? I'm sure there are some LARPy fucking anarchists out there who are like, yeah, just eliminate the cops. Fuck it, we don't need them. Community organization. And while I wholly support the idea of organizing community watches, there needs to be some sort of education or regulation in place for those people in the community watch, or else we're going to end up with open season on black people by the handful of loud, aggressive, racist white people who take over these community watch programs. Like, I mean, you can't have a community watch that just... We can't have police as they are now with an indiscriminate license to do whatever they want thanks to qualified immunity. So we need to change it. No one is saying just eliminate cops. What they're saying is we need to scale back what the police do and use the money we're currently spending on police to improve and build up our communities. Save dogs from hot cars and host charity pancake breakfasts. Exactly, collusion. Dis Eli. But the legality of what the police officer, any charges probably don't stand any chance, if only because of the gray zone of what is justified force. So this shows why we need to retrain police officers, because the police officer shot someone to death and clearly there was no imminent threat. Yeah, exactly. I've been in stressful situations. I've worked in call centers and retail. And while there were definitely times I wanted to punch someone, I understood that there would be consequences. The problem is that there aren't consequences for police. So they know they can just get away with whatever they're doing.
Seriously think this is a good idea ever. Like, I don't know. I've heard so many weird conspiracy theories that like it's some sort of like elaborate scheme to get Americans to push back for it and like support a police state. Like, if that's true, it's kind of working. Like, holy shit, I am supporting cops so much right now. Like, I
Of course you support cops, Harman. I legit think this dude is a fascist. Like, I try not to apply that label to everyone. I try to be clear when I think someone is just edging toward fascism, or they're just using fascistic rhetoric or thinking, but they're not necessarily fascist themselves. No, I legit think this dude is a fascist. He wants to completely crack down on anyone who thinks differently than him.
fucking love the police. Holy shit. Hashtag heart. I love the blue. I have no idea. Like, is there blue lives matter? Is it people were
Blue lives don't matter. They're the only ones that don't.
hyping this up? I don't know, man. It's interesting. Black people are basically political pawns because it's really interesting how this situation doesn't feel like it has anything to do with the city of Minneapolis anymore, or really ever did. Like, they're making it about Trump, and they're doing everything in their power to sort of destabilize the economy. Like, they did all that stupid shit with Corona, letting it into the country, letting it spread.
Holy.
Not setting good policies in place, like making all these really basic mistakes that were really, really avoidable. And I almost think it's intentional at this point. I think it's straight up malicious. You know what I mean?
Isn't this dude a Trump supporter? It was Trump's fault we didn't shut down the country like we should have. And I mean, I don't want to let China or the WHO completely off the hook here. They definitely may drop some balls there. But Trump's complete denial of the dangers of coronavirus, of COVID-19, are largely responsible for the spread it's had. Moreover, the fact that he didn't issue a nationwide shelter-in-place order, but left it up to the states, as conservatives like to do, means that there was no unified response to it. And then there's the federal government telling states that they're going to have to order their own PPE and whatever gear to fight it. And then when they did, confiscating those orders and putting them into the federal stockpile. Like, I mean, I'm cool with you blaming Trump. He definitely shares a significant portion of blame here, but it's just a little weird for you, bro.
Like seeing Democrats simply refuse to take action to protect their own city.
Oh, fuck off. Democratic administrations are the ones that took the most action. Yes, New York and Seattle were both hit really hard. But California's doing okay. Here in Iowa, we're doing better, but it's not a blue and red thing. Nobody did well enough to prevent this like they should have. Yeah, and I agree, Next SVK. Actually, what was it? Was it New Zealand? There were a couple of countries that reacted properly and kept it under control. Definitely South Korea is like the poster child for handling it properly, even with their couple of mess ups. Jesus, this team sport where Democrats are always wrong and Republicans are always right. No, they're all mostly wrong. Some of them are just more right than others, or more wrong than others.
From these people, I don't know. Democrat leaders must think they're straight up untouchable. It's really weird how the black community isn't rioting against them, the leader.
Yeah, Next SVK. I guarantee that the argument in court will be that the guy who died, Rashad, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. I'm awful with names. that if he had hit the cop, he was going to run back and steal his gun, when I think it was pretty clear he was just trying to get away. I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, we can discuss whether his actions in resisting arrest there, taking the taser and shooting it, we can discuss whether all that is good or bad. My personal feelings are that if you are going to be detained, that the human will has the undeniable need to be free, and as long as you don't hurt anyone, you can resist that. I recognize that that's not a great policy, but that's just my feeling on it. But it seemed like he was just trying to get away. But I guarantee that someone is going to try to say that he was going to come back and steal a gun if they hadn't shot him, if he had hit with the taser or what have you.
The government of their own, the local government in their communities, the people who are supposedly oppressing them, but going to Trump, who hasn't done jack shit. If anything, Trump has been very generous to you people. Giving you free money with the stimulus, which he really shouldn't have done.
Holy shit! Yeah, I knew he was a Trump supporter, but I was waiting for this. Yeah, Trump knew exactly what he was doing by delaying the stimulus checks so he could put his signatures on them. That was 100% calculated. Because now he's going to get credit for them, even though it was the Democratic House and the Senate which passed that bill. And this is also ignoring all of the bills that the Democratic House has sent to the Senate and Mitch McConnell has killed, which would have given more money to people. So that $1,200 pittance that some people got is... Everyone is... a lot of people are going to champion Trump for doing that and ignore the fact that actually it was... This is a major issue in America for the last 30 or 40 years, is that presidents get credit for things that their legislatures do. The House and Senate pass a bill and the president signs off on it. The president's new legislation. It's part of the imperialization of the presidency that has led to a lot of issues.
It's really interesting how I didn't talk about how...
Yeah, Dodge, I'm pretty sure that was Chauvin. Went through a 9-hour de-escalation training. Yeah. There's an article, it's a Medium article, so, think of that what you will. And one of the things he talks about in here is that these de-escalation trainings, these bias trainings that they get, they're a joke. They're taught by other cops who don't take it seriously. None of the cops in the class take it seriously. They help them out with the tests so that they make sure that everyone passes and nobody learns anything. So, yeah.
Apparently, I'm so rich that I'm so wealthy at this point that I did not support the stimulus check. So I don't know what that says about me, but I was against the idea of a stimulus check. Like I thought you.
Of course you were, because you got yours, so no one else needs any help. But there are other people who do need help, who still need help. Have we hit 40 million unemployment claims? Bringing... Yeah, if we're not over 40 million, because this is from WAPO, right? Let's see. As of May 20th, Yeah, May as of 14 May 36.5. That was later in May, May 21st. So 38.5. If it's not over 40 million by now, yeah.
Everyone, myself included, should have just gone without it. I was prepared to do that, and you should have been as well. Um, I thought in the long term it would sort of cause a problem, but I don't know. Things seem to be recovering. It really can't be stressed enough that Donald Trump is a great, great president. Like
Oh
handling the
boy.
plague. When Hillary Clinton said in 2016 that he could never do that, dealing with these crazy riots almost single-handedly, in spite of all this crazy opposition from a
Dude, take Trump's dick out of your mouth. I know you've drunk the Trump Kool-Aid, but seriously, he's bungled literally everything from an objective point of view. And his rhetoric surrounding the protests is going to get a lot of people killed because he's talking about sending in the military to crush these peaceful protests. And the protests are peaceful. Mostly. Like, the vast majority of them are peaceful. And then there's the tear gassing of people at a church. Now, I'm a staunch atheist. I don't really hold much value in clergy or churches. I don't think they deserve more respect than any other institution in America. Probably deserve a little bit less than most. But given that the church in Washington, D.C. was actively helping people when Trump ordered it cleared and tear gassed for his shitty photo op. Oh yeah, Trump's a fucking genius there.
literal Bowser, Mayor Bowser. That's how terrible this is. Fucking Bowser is part of the Democratic Party and trying to fuck over Donald Trump. It's just weird, weird situations, weird, crazy situations. That I think are dying down at this point. I think people have run out of stuff to loot and they gotten bored with it. George Floyd is basically forgotten at this point. It
Holy
was never
shit.
about him. I really can't stress.
This video is actually almost 2 weeks old because it came out on the 5th. But he's not forgotten by any means. They're even calling what's happened in Seattle, they're referring to it as the George Floyd Rebellion. Which is a little LARPy, but I stand by it. To live in your world, dude.
This enough.
Hey, Super Duper Simp. How you doing?
Like, they were looking for an excuse. Like, I really can't stress this enough. The media was trying to start this for a while now. You know, like creating this fabrication that
Wow.
black people are being like straight up antagonized by the police.
Am I being ableist by continuing to dunk on this dude? Because I think he's seriously deranged. I think this dude is seriously, like, insane. Like, wow. The media's been trying to start this for a while. No, the media has reported what's happened. I mean, I have my own issues with the media in general. I'm not going to, say that the media is perfect and they never lie or twist things. I know enough to say that's the case. But to say that the media has been trying to what? Cause riots and unrest in the streets? Like, one thing I will say in Donald Trump's defense, this is not something he caused. I mean, we can argue about whether his racist and inflammatory rhetoric has emboldened some of these police officers to act in the way they have. But this is something that has been going on for decades. I remember this guy on Twitter got real high and mighty because he was like, "You don't know anything about protests. We were doing this back in the 70s. We knew how to do it right, and there wasn't any looting or rioting." To which, first of all, yes, there fucking was looting and rioting in the 70s. And second of all, if you did it right, why are we still fighting for the same shit in 2020?
All the time, which is simply is not true. Like police body cams have been a thing for a while and have been publicly available for viewing. Like whenever a situation like this comes up, you can look at the footage, and generally speaking, the officer was dealing with someone who deserved to be apprehended, beat up, or even shot. There are situations where that is perfectly not only reasonable, but the only way to defend yourself. You know what I mean? Like crazy people come after cops all the time. Crazy people are coming after cops right now. And you seriously think that like, we need to abolish the police. It's ridiculous. All the arguments against the police are clearly coming from people who not only don't respect them, like don't even really understand what they do.
What have police done to earn our respect? So this is something I see a lot of these conservatives and bootlickers do, is like, you should respect police. Why? Respect is earned. Okay? This is something that we get a lot of in society, is we're expected to respect people in positions of authority who not only haven't earned it, but have done quite the opposite.
You know what I mean? Like people not understanding basic shit, like the difference between like first, second, and third degree murder. Besides, maybe a vague idea that like, first and second is worse than third. It's like people are, they really don't.
Isn't it first is premeditated, second is you didn't pre-plan it, but you intended to kill them, and third is accidentally killed them, like you didn't intend to kill them, but you did kill them. I think that's the difference. But yeah, that's because laws are deliberately obfuscated to make it more difficult for regular people to defend themselves. That's it. That's why they do this.
Don't know anything about about the legal process. Like it really does feel it's really weird seeing people try to like rationalize this, to justify it, justify the lootings, damage control, the beatings, the more black people have died.
No. So in every instance of someone being beaten by looters or rioters or protesters, they're one of two categories. Either we disavow them because they were beaten for some other reason, and that's not what we support, which is reasonable. Or they were like the dude in Texas who charged the protesters with a sword and got his ass beat. And that second class is the one that a lot of people harp on because they're the ones who get a lot of media attention. It's funny that it works out that way. Talk shit, get hit. Sure, next SVK. My DMs are open.
Because of these riots at the hands of the police, I would imagine all year. I'm not sure if we have hard numbers on that, but I haven't heard. I've heard of several people getting beat up by the protesters. So we're gonna have to wait and see like what the hard numbers are. But I'm certain it's there are more cases. There are already more cases of more damages done by these protesters than have ever been done by the police this year. I'm sure, if not the last 10, 20, or
I mean, if we're talking monetary damage to uh, to municipalities, sure. But if we're talking about damage to people and communities, boy howdy, the police have done way more damage.
100. Like, name the last time a police a police force burned down an entire city. They were elected to defend. Like, they were supposed to defend or to serve. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen. You know.
I didn't know that was going to pop up on the screen there. My bad. So let me just say, next SVK, you have been respectful and good faith. I have no problem with you being in my chat. So I appreciate you trying to be discreet about that. I honestly did not know that it was going to pop up on screen like that. But for real, I have no issue with you being in my chat. You've been respectful and everything, so.
You know, like it's ridiculous. Look, it is straight up absurd. Um, I hope it sort of uh, I hope more and more people start becoming critical of this. I certainly am. It's I'm not sure if I'm alone on this. I'm not sure.
Trust
really
me,
does
bro.
feel like
You are not alone on this. You are just another voice in the fucking crowd.
the entire media and like the Democratic propaganda wing, university educated, uh, useful idiots, the commies, people like that. Those people sort of have like this sort of stranglehold on like social media, but I'm seeing a lot of people push back against it. It seems like an underground thing. The weird thing about this, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, they try pushing themselves as a counterculture when they're clearly mainstream culture. Like it's really weird that way, and like
They're counterculture in that they're trying to change the culture. And they're only mainstream because the media has kind of realized that there's a lot of people on their side. And again, this is something I've seen a lot of people. You claim to be counterculture, but this is something that a lot of socialists and anarchists get. You claim to be counterculture, but you agree with the Heritage Institute or what have you. And yeah, it's because usually that's when we talk about things like open immigration, open borders, and whatnot. And that's because two groups of people can want the same thing for different reasons. Uh, Media companies want clicks, they want eyeballs on their stuff, so they know that uh, when so they will cover things that they know people are interested in and are passionate about, because they know that people are interested in it and are passionate about it, so they will want to hear it. But the but people are interested in Black Lives Matter because they want to improve the conditions of black people. Same thing like when conservatives try to talk about uh, socialists and anarchists wanting open borders and how that's siding with the Koch brothers or whatever. Socialists and anarchists want it because we don't believe, well, anarchists don't believe that there should be any restriction of movement, and socialists generally agree. It's generally about the same. Places like organizations like the Heritage Institute or the Cato Institute believe in more immigration because it makes things cheaper for capitalists. So we want the same thing, but we have different reasons for wanting it. Now, this does mean that we kind of have to be careful with our allies to make sure that our allies want the same goals we do, because even if we have one similar goal, doesn't mean all of our goals are the same. But Yeah, just because the media is supporting Black Lives Matter, it's because they recognize that if they didn't, they would get much less business, much fewer uh, advertisements, and many fewer viewers.
The racists who supposedly are keeping down the black community simply don't exist. Like literally everyone seemed to be in agreement that like yeah maybe that officer shouldn't have killed George Floyd. We'll look into it, but no, they spurred the fuck out.
Yes, everyone agreed that he was wrong, but we've seen this time and time and time again. Look at Breonna Taylor, look at Ahmaud Arbery, look at Trayvon Martin, look at all of these people who have been killed either by police or by vigilantes, and no one faces charges. Remember how the police had the Ahmaud Arbery tape for months before they did anything? And they only did something because the tape went viral and everyone saw it and was demanding action? That's what this is. The black community finally decided, all right, enough is a fucking enough. We're done being ground under this boot heel, and we're gonna make noise until you fix it. It only took a week to get Minneapolis to say they're defunding and disbanding their police department, and LA to say that they're shorting the budget of their police department. Imagine what a month will do. Hell, in a year we might have actually fixed some shit.
Over nothing before the police had a chance to evaluate the situation. They really rioted before.
Excuse me, Mr. Ed, but the police had time to do something, and they chose to do nothing until the protests broke out. And again, we've seen time and time again what happens in these shootings. Time and time again, we've seen police arrested, charged, and acquitted.
They really jumped the gun when it came to rioting. You know what I mean? It was completely unjustified to respond in that fashion. I can't imagine them seriously defending this. Well, I've seen them try to defend it. I really have, and all of it falls flat. Let's see. Maybe I should look at. Maybe I should just do some Twitter responses. Maybe looking at some footage, like uploading that. I don't know. Okay. Minneapolis City Council is seriously considering replacing police with groups of mental health counselors, life coaches, and community advocates.
Based? Yeah. Because the vast majority of things that police respond to, even in a city like Minneapolis, are not things which armed paramilitary forces are trained or equipped to deal with. Like, again, what if instead of an armed paramilitary force responding to the dude in the Wendy's parking lot, instead it was a social worker who came up to him and said, "Hey, buddy, listen, you can't sleep here, so you know what's going on? Why are you sleeping here? You know, do you have a home? Do you have a place to go?" "Yes, had a few and wanted a double bacon and a frosty, but guess I fell asleep. Sorry, hoss." Okay. And then they investigate why he was out drinking. And I'm not saying that everyone drinks because they have undiagnosed mental health issues. Not everyone drinks and drives for that reason. But a lot of people do. A lot of people drink to silence the demons or make the pain go away. Hell, my dad said one of the reasons my dad gave for his alcoholism was the pain of working as a carpenter all his life, which could be solved by a more robust healthcare system. All these problems, and we respond to them by sending wannabe soldiers to respond to them instead of sending people who are trained in conflict resolution and de-escalation that doesn't involve a fucking gun. So yeah, while I will admit that there are certainly some situations where an armed force trained in combat tactics or what have you might be useful, that is a tiny fraction of the number of the kind of situations that police find themselves in daily. But we expect police to respond to those.
911. What's your emergency? Victim, I'm being raped.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, next SVK, the one we discussed a few minutes ago.
911. Sending a life coach to your location. Oh, that's great. Yeah, you're always seeing these people like come out and saying like, where was the police when I was raped? Where was the police when...
The vast majority of rape and assault survivors I've seen testimonials of have said that the police did nothing to help them. They'd show up hours later, write down a few details, and then nothing else would come of it. The number of times police have dealt with crimes, or dealt with these assaults and rapes and what have you, is vanishingly small. And moreover, police are a reactive element. They are they basically just react to crimes. If we instead structured our society so that we tried to solve issues that cause crimes before they cause crimes, we wouldn't need as many police. And again, yes, people will rape for reasons other than, mental health or not having enough resources. People will kill. I'm not saying that we can eliminate all crime. But if we reduce the amount of crime significantly, isn't that a better place? We're all about harm reduction here, right? We all want to reduce harm as much as possible. So why are we standing around like dumb fucks acting like the police are the only thing standing between us and complete chaos when the police cause that chaos as often as not?
When somebody like misgendered me, like again, it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like people seriously have this seriously pushing this agenda against the police when there are perfectly valid reasons why they're not your personal task force.
Actually, I know another instance, Dodge. Our friend who moved up to Madison and died a few years ago, when he was living here in town, he got into a fight with his girlfriend. His girlfriend hit him. He called the police and they arrested him. So yeah, the police in the vast majority of situations we call police for are either not helpful or harmful. That's why we say we need to replace and what we're getting here is the basic meathead. So you don't think that police, you think we can replace police with life coaches and social workers? Like they ever do anything. Might do more than police. At least it's worth a shot.
They're not supposed to do everything you command of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's their job to enforce the law, and sometimes, usually, a lot of times, actually, people fucking lie to them, and they have to be skeptical of what they're being told. I myself would not take people who were supposedly maybe there are a lot of false rape allegations out there, and it's becoming a real problem. And I wonder if the police are aware of that in some capacity. More and more people are becoming outspoken about that as well. I will probably talk about that going forward.
I'd be more worried about false rape allegations if rapes were actually investigated. How many thousands of unprocessed rape kits are there in police precincts? I mean, this issue of false rape allegation, this goes back to the whole Me Too and just the accusation can ruin someone's career. And while so the motto of believe all women was misinterpreted to mean that assume all women are telling the truth. And what it actually means, maybe this isn't what was intended, but this is what should be done with it, is that all rapes should be investigated. And if they're not investigated, there better be a damn good reason, and not just because, oh, he has a promising swimming career, so we don't want to derail that.
Again, it's really no different. Women essentially weaponize rape allegations, I should say, to sort of get back at people and get back at certain men and sort of.
Where's your proof? Where's your evidence, dude, that police or that women weaponize rape allegations? Where's your proof, dude? Bring it on. Where's the proof? Because the actual number of verified false rape allegations is vanishingly small. And when it happens, it often comes out. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But this idea that you can just say, he held me down and he raped me, and that will just destroy his career based on your word, is absurd. You need a prolonged media campaign. You need a lot of support. And sometimes that's not even enough. After all, Brett Kavanaugh's still on the Supreme Court, isn't he?
Something out of it, essentially. Like, we've seen this, like, politically. We've seen them try to use rape allegations to destroy people's political careers, get money out of people. Women have been caught lying about this stuff constantly. False rape allegations probably should be criminalized, for sure. To what extent?
Boy.
Again,
false rape accusations should definitely be criminalized, because that wouldn't be used as a cudgel against women. Jesus Christ. And point of fact, if you can actually prove damages, they are already criminalized, because that's slander. If you can prove that someone lodged a false rape allegation against you and prove that it caused damage, that's a slam dunk slander case.
For legal professionals to figure out. To what extent should the protests be punished? Like, I think my solution. This is just my idea here. Cities need to form a group of people, deputize like civilians or whatever, like form a kind of militia, right? Have them deal with the rioters, push them back, restrain them, prevent them from destroying stuff, while the police themselves focus on detainment and arrests. Like, I would like to see 30, 40, 50, 60% of these people, like, apprehended and arrested for all the shit they're doing.
I know you would, you fat. I'm done listening to this troll fucking shit. Jesus Christ. Yeah, we just need to crack down on the protesters. You know, they're all criminals. They're all just trying to lie and make a name for themselves. And they're just absolute horrible people. We just need to crack down on them. Fuck you, dude. We're done here. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.